What is going on, guys? What are my top 5 dream buffs in War Robots? So if Big Sonic gave me a magic wand and said, I can buff and change any 5 robots I want and it would permanently stay, this is what I would choose. I know a lot of you guys ask me, what are my favorite robots? What do I wish was buffed? This is answering those questions. So let's get into the video. I have to think actually pretty hard about this because you only have 5 buffs. That is this situation. Let's see. To start with, the worst robot on this list, the Rhino. So these are the changes I would make. The ability rework first. So I would make it that you can move freely while using your physical shield. You can shoot all your weapons, so make the physical shield smaller on the Rhino. And you can shoot all your weapons with your physical shield up. That doesn't even seem that crazy. The physical shield isn't that great of an ability. So no ability cooldown. Add 2 passive module slots to the Rhino. 15% durability buff. And also, while you're in the assault mode, which is when your physical shield is up and you gain speed, make or give the Rhino some resistance. And then 10% base speed buff. So it seems like a lot of buffs, but it's pretty reasonable. The Rhino is unusable right now in top leagues. I think it's not even that great in lower leagues. So making these changes would be very small. It's a big change for a very small result. And I think it would really pay off because players would actually be like, oh, maybe in Masters League, I should try out the Rhino. That's all it would do. The only problem is, if you give resistance to the Rhino while in assault mode, you have to make some kind of downside. So maybe make it like a time limit or something, or else players are just going to be walking around with permanent resistance while in the assault mode. But I don't think these changes are crazy enough where players are going to be like, I'm not going to get a Siren or a Revenant because the Rhino is better. I don't think it's that crazy. So that's number 1. Rhino, the worst one that's in need of a buff big time. The second one, the Invader. So the Invader is actually pretty decent right now. It's getting a 10% durability buff on the test server, but it still needs some work, to say the least. What I would do to make it very usable in the game or in Champion League, ability rework. So upon using your incursion ability, while the robot jumps, so as you jump, activate 8 seconds of stealth and a 30% damage boost. So you know how an Inquisitor, when you're using the Inquisitor and you jump, you get that stealth? Do that same thing with the Invader and then give it a 30% damage boost for that 8 seconds. Not that crazy. The Invader doesn't have a lot of firepower, so I think that would be pretty reasonable and not that big a deal. Like, if they did that, I think it would be usable in Champion League. It's not going to take down Revenants. Next, ability suppression replaced by EMP blast. So the Invader actual ability, it's so much work to use the Invader, find an enemy, jump, land on them, and then they get suppressed, and everyone's running anti-control modules, so it doesn't even work. At least change the suppression to an EMP blast, so it's actually effective, because suppression isn't enough. Most of the time, players just run away and wait for the suppression to go away, and then you're dead. So do that. Possibly make the radius of the Invader ability 100 to 150 meters. I think that's pretty reasonable, just to make it easier to actually hit players with your blast. 15% durability buff, and that would make it what I think the most durability in the game. So I think the Invader is definitely one of those robots you can give that much durability because the firepower isn't that crazy. 10% speed buff, and then lastly, decrease the size of the robot. The robot's footprint is too big in the game, so it makes it really hard to move through maps like Power Plant. Make it a smaller robot. There's no advantage to having it being this monster robot that can't move through the map. Next, personal favorite, the Leo. So to start, the Leo seems like it was a rumor back in the day that the Leo should have gotten a 4th light weapon slot, because when you look at the design of it, it almost looks like it's missing a weapon on it. So first, add a 4th weapon slot to the Leo, and then the Leo doesn't even have an ability, so give it an ability. Let's call it armor mode for this video, in which a robot or the robot activates a 10-second resistance mode with a 15% durability boost for that armor mode ability. Add 2 passive module slots because it only has 1 right now. permanent Aegis shield, and increase the speed by 10%. So similar to like kind of a Fenrir bulwark kind of thing, but not exactly, but I think it could be very usable. If you gave the Leo these buffs, it could be honestly a Champion League robot, because I don't think any robot has 4 light weapons and 1 heavy. So imagine the Leo with those changes. That would blow my head off, and I would be very excited. Next up, one of the newer robots on this list, the Raven. So what can I say? You might be asking, why am I not making changes to like the Griffin or the Carnage? It's because these robots, they need complete overhauls to the point where they're going to become different robots. And if Pixonic doesn't want to buff the Griffin, that's fine. That's one thing. But why aren't they buffing the Raven? The Raven's supposed to be the 2.0 good version of the Griffin. It makes no sense. So this is what I would do with the Raven. So still keep the double jump as it is. So right now when you jump with the Raven, you get a 20% damage boost. Make that 30% so it's a little more damage. And then because the Raven just has no defense whatsoever, while you're jumping, add a damage reflector while you're in the air until you hit the ground. So that would make it so your jump's actually effective without getting killed every time you jump. So you have a damage reflector similar like a Harpy or a Siren, so you take very little damage. And then add a physical shield to the Raven while on the ground, similar to the tier. So, and then increase the durability by 10%. So pretty much, if I'm a Raven, in a Raven, I'm walking around, I have my physical shield out, my small physical shield that's going to block energy weapons and whatnot. And then when I jump, it switches off and I have the reflector blocking or reflecting damage, and then I hit the ground and it's back to normal. That's it. And they increase the durability. That doesn't seem that crazy. The Raven is very difficult to use because every time you jump, you get ripped apart by enemies in the air. And then even when you hit the ground, you have no defense whatsoever. They need to do something about that. Next up, so that's the buff number 4, and buff number 5. Last but not least, the Fujin. So we actually saw the Fujin get a buff recently, but it just wasn't enough. To start ability rework, change the energy shield to an Aegis shield on the Fujin. It's not that hard. People have been saying this for like years now. Make the energy shield an Aegis shield. Energy shields are completely useless. Most of the weapons in the game are energy weapons. Makes no sense. So while you're in that sentry mode, your speed decreases by 15%, but your damage increases by 30%. So you go up in your ability, your sentry mode, you'll be able to walk, but 15% slower. And then you increase your damage by 30%, which is a lot, more than a death mark. And then you have an Aegis shield instead of an energy shield. Pretty simple. Add, similar to what I said with the Raven, add a small physical shield to the Fujin when not using your sentry mode, so you can actually walk around with getting ripped apart. And man, if they can, try to make it so you can move around more easily with the Fujin, because once again, it's one of those spider robots that's pretty wide and it's difficult to maneuver around. Add 2 passive module slots, durability increased by 25% and speed increased by 15%. The durability 25% boost is actually very needed. At Mark 3, the Fujin has, I think, 175,000 HP, which is insanely bad. For Mark 3, it should have at least 250. And yeah, what can I say? Increase the speed by 15%. So those are my changes that I would pick if I had the magic wand and I could make 5 magic buffs. Like I said, the Griffin and Carnage, the Griffin, like, that's okay if it's the way it is, but the Raven has to be at least good. The Carnage is so gone that they would need like a complete new robot at this point. And yeah, if Pixonic can make these changes, I think, man, the most reasonable one to do, I mean, this Fujin one's not that difficult. The Fujin one, the Raven one's pretty reasonable. The Leo one, of all things, this one here, the ability suppression replaced by an EMP blast, I think that is actually a very reasonable thing to do. And I think Pixonic should do it. That's going to wrap up the video, guys. Let me know what your 5 dream buffs are. Did I get the list right, or do you think different robots should be buffed? Until next time, peace. Consider subscribing to the channel, join our Predator War Robots Discord, and see you guys next time. Black licorice is gross, and Gatorade monkey.